Lockdown, lockdown, down memory lane. Lockdown, lockdown, see those guys again. Wrokdown.
Hi, welcome to Wrokdown. I'm Wendy Stapleton. Our special guest this week is a wonderful musician who's never had a hit record or been part of a famous recording band. However, his biog is impressive, and many of you will know him as both a backing drummer for well-known artists and playing with heaps of tribute bands, but what he is best known for recently is as an organ donor recipient on The Gift on Channel 9 last year. Coming from a musical background, he never smoked, never drank, and never took drugs, which is an amazing achievement. So it was a big shock to the system to find he needed a new liver. My family and I are all registered organ donors, so I am delighted we can dedicate this week's show to this important subject. So please welcome Sam Biffi. Hey Sam, how are you?
Hi Wendy.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This is a wonderful story, and as I said, our family are all organ donors, and somewhere along the line, I think my husband had to have some sort of operation where at some stage, I think we may have thought that he needed a donor. But it usually takes something like that to shake people into doing something. Before we go into the whole beautiful story about this journey that you've been on with the organ transplant, tell us a bit about yourself, because I know that you are one of those guys that everyone in the Melbourne scene knows as a fantastic musician, fantastic drummer. So you obviously started playing when you were a kid?
Yeah, I started playing drums at high school in Form 1. Every kid at school in the music department wanted to play drums, so that there was a bit of a condition that you had to go through first.
Which was?
You had to learn another instrument, so I chose trombone as a brass instrument. And then after you've progressed through the 6 months of learning the basics, you had to learn how to play all the percussion instruments like xylophone and vibraphone, and learn how to read all the music. Yeah, so for the first 12 months of my school life in the music department, that's my instruments. And then I qualified to learn how to play drums. And within probably the first 6 months, I was the drummer in the main orchestra. I learned pretty quickly. My drum teacher was a guy called Gordon Pendleton.
Okay, where did you learn? What area was that in?
Templestowe.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's where I grew up. We moved to Templestowe in '72 with all the other Italians that migrated across.
All the people who'd worked hard and
yeah.
made a bit of money so that they could live out in gorgeous Templestowe.
Yeah.
So obviously when you learn music in that format, you also learn to read.
Exactly, yeah.
Which a lot of the time, if you're like in a recording, songwriting situation, it's not at all necessary. Well, it's not at all necessary, but it does put you in great stead for being able to be a backing artist.
Yeah, I mean, I can read most drum charts. Most of them are pretty basic. There's a lot of just words like fill, so you just use your own interpretation on the charts. And it also helps me dissect songs. When I learn songs for tribute shows, I can write a chart out for myself to learn it.
Yes.
And then hopefully it goes into memory and we don't need the charts. So it's helped me a hell of a lot, to be honest.
Well, it would. Have you ever had anyone come out to do a show with like a Las Vegas chart? Sort of?
I've done plenty of shows where the charts have been nowhere near what the singer was actually doing. So that's when I wished I did drink.
I know that you've worked with lots and lots of famous people.
Yeah.
So who?
Well, probably the most famous person, recording artist, would have to be Alison Durbin.
Beautiful Alison.
Yeah, I worked with her as we had a three-piece band called Risky Business, so we backed the band, or backed her, and also did band sets at various clubs around Melbourne and Country Vic. I've worked with Grantley D, Rick Diamond, Denise Drysdale, fantastic.
Isn't she great?
I love it when she wears her underwear on the outside of her clothes.
Isn't she fabulous?
Yeah.
I've done a few shows with her, and I've not met a funnier girl, actually. She's not scared to send herself up.
Yeah, look, it's just great. I mean, they're really nice people too, which was a surprise. And apart from that, being involved in the scene, I managed to get my face on a few shows as well, television shows.
Yes.
While backing these artists, so we were on the Bert Newton show a few times in the mornings, and we got to the midday show with Kerry Ann Keneally.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got on the gift program with my transplant.
So were you living off this? Was this your full-time job, or were you always more sensible and have a real job?
It was always a hobby. It was always
Really?
just a hobby, and I've been in the finance industry for 22 years. I'm still in the finance industry, and music was always a hobby to me, but I've been lucky enough to have flexibility in my jobs to get away for gigs and stuff like that. And
Well, you would have been one of the busiest hobby drummers that I've heard of.
oh, look, it was incredible. When I was single, not married, I was probably working 4 gigs a week and working full time. And then when you get married and have children, well, that has to change. So every now and then I do a gig now because my wife says I go crazy if I don't do some music because it's part of my blood, sort of thing.
And so, and apart from that too, obviously things have slightly changed since you found out that you... What age were you when you started to realise that you were having a problem with your... It was a liver transplant.
Liver transplant, yeah.
See, I've donated all my organs, but I'm not sure anyone would want my liver.
Oh, that can be selective. Well, I was 37 years old. I'm now 43 this year. So at 37, I collapsed at home and I had 5 kidney stones in my urinal passage, and when they scanned me at the hospital, they saw my liver, which was like a total shock. Once I passed and got rid of the stones, I was referred to a liver specialist, Professor Bob Jones at the Austin Hospital, and they said that, you know, medication will monitor it for the next couple of years, but more likely, they said, between 5 and 10 years' time, you may require a transplant. Well, unfortunately, the liver just got progressively really bad quickly, and by the
Are
time...
they connected, like your kidney? Because you said you had kidney stones?
Yeah, well, the liver's connected to, is a filter for all your organs.
Excuse my ignorance, but
Yeah.
a lot of people probably wouldn't know how it's all...
Yeah, and the only reason why they found out about the liver is because when I came and collapsed, they had to do an X-ray or scan me to find out what's wrong, and they realised it was kidney stones, but they also saw the liver, which was about the size of my fist.
And normally, what is it?
Well, it's about, for my size body, it's about the size of a basketball.
So it wasn't... It had shriveled?
It had shrunk, yeah.
Ah.
And it was beyond reviving itself, because the liver's an organ where you can cut the parts that are, you know, gone bad, and then it revives itself. Mine was past that. And it was even more difficult because I got a red blood type and they wanted to match my blood type. And I was told basically when I was put on the list for an organ to recipient, because you have to go through a lot of processing to get to that level, I was told, look, the last time I got an organ was about 18 months ago. The likelihood of you getting one in time is probably very remote.
How long did they give you?
Well, they said I had about 6 or 7 months before it got really critical, yeah. And that was in February last year, I was told that, which was 2007.
When they say critical, then do you go on to some form of, like, I know for your kidneys you go on dialysis.
You can't do that.
You can't do that with
basically liver. You just get sick. And my problem was I didn't have the jaundice. I didn't go yellow. I had fluid retention, so I was massive 1 week, and then I'd go and get 20 litres of fluid taken to my body, and then I'd lose weight again. Like, it was almost like, you know, the Jenny Craig diet in, you know, as a gimmick sort of thing. It was really weird. So when I went into theatre, I was over 150 kilos. I was 157 kilos. I came out of theatre 13 hours later when I had the transplant. I was 117 kilos. That's how much body fluid I had inside me. So it was huge.
So obviously the liver is to get rid of all of the fluid.
Well, that was what the problem was causing. For me was fluid retention. It wasn't diluting. I wasn't going to the toilet how I should have to get rid of fluids and things like that, or sweating it out.
So is this hereditary? Because the thing is that I know that they tell me if you have 2 AFD days a week, your liver sort of looks after itself and cleans itself up, and you're back. So the fact that you never drank, was it? Well,
my problem was caused by an infection and fatty tissues. No one in my family's got a liver problem. They reckon that the infection I caught that caused it was probably from travelling overseas, and the longest time I spent travelling overseas was when I got a contract working on a ship playing my instrument, and I think, well, maybe that was in Asia, so I don't know whether I caught it there. The bug, yeah.
That gets into your system?
Which stays in your system and just sleeps and then activates itself, and eventually it did. So...
Yes, I have 2 friends actually who have had a similar experience.
Yeah.
Both of them caught bugs whilst travelling through Asia, and of course, as you said, it sits in your system and you don't know anything's wrong because it doesn't present as anything at the time, does it? It doesn't present as
you don't feel anything.
flu or anything like that.
Well, all that happened through that period, I recall, massive weight increase, massive weight loss, massive weight increase. That's what was happening for years, and I couldn't work out why, because I was a pretty physical guy, and I used to do a lot of gigs, and I used to do a lot of sport as well. And I couldn't work out why the weight kept coming back.
Okay, Sam, we're going to take a short break, but this is an amazing story, and it's really one worth everyone listening to, and hopefully that tonight some of you who aren't already donors may change your mind and get online and register on organdonor.com.au. But anyway, we'll take a short break and be back soon with Sam.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. Our special guest tonight is Sam Biffi, who, apart from being one of Melbourne's most loved backing drummers, he's agreed to come on the show tonight to talk to us about him becoming a recipient for an organ transplant, which was a liver transplant.
Yep.
Once you found out that you needed all of these treatments, it didn't stop you from still going out as many nights a week as you could playing. How did that affect your strength?
I've always had good strength, even right up to the point of having, just before having the transplant. It didn't really tire me in terms of my strength. What it did do to me was my perspiration and my fluids. I was getting the most amazing cramps at all weird times of the day. I could be sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd wake up screaming my head off. My wife thought I was having a heart attack. It's because I had cramps in my body. That's what the constant fluids coming in and out of my system was causing. And even playing, doing a gig, you're halfway through a show and you've got these most amazing cramps in your legs.
What did you do?
I just screamed while I was playing and kept playing. What could I do?
Because over all that noise, the racket that drummers make, you wouldn't know.
They thought it was
I can
normal.
say that, you know I'm only joking.
Yeah, well, they thought it was normal.
Not.
That's the weird thing.
Why'd you make a racket? And unfortunately for singers, you've got to stand right in front of people like yourself.
I'm sorry.
It's all right, I'm only joking. You're probably one of those very considerate drummers that plays at a nice volume. But anyway, we'll get back to this.
Okay.
Did the music take your mind off your problems? I mean, it's great fun going out to do gigs.
Oh, look, I love it, and the music's helped me in many ways. I mean, I went through times before I got sick where I had some issues to deal with, and my music helped me deal with it, cope with the stress. When I was sick and told that I was very sick, once again, the gigs and my mates in the scene and doing all that sort of stuff and people's reactions, because the band got into a habit of telling people what was happening, and their reaction gave me a bit of strength and a bit of positiveness.
And they all rallied around.
Yeah, and it was good.
Musos always do,
exactly.
Which is great.
So I can't say other than the music's been fantastic for me to help me get through it all, and it still is.
Yes.
In such a way.
Well, there's a wonderful organisation which you've probably heard of, and we're all part of it. It's called Support Act, which only I think started about 2 years ago in Melbourne, and it's a group where musicians actually try and raise funds for other musos, famous, non-famous, it doesn't matter if you're in need of help. And Support Act are a wonderful, wonderful organisation as well. So if you ever come across them, think about helping them out as well. Okay, so you needed a transplant.
Yeah.
So you go on the register.
You have to go through a whole series of testing prior to that to qualify for the register, because they have to check every single part of your body to make sure that by taking an organ out, they're not at risk of you dying when the organ's waiting to be put back in, the new one.
Right.
So it's pretty thorough what they do. They check everything. That took probably about 6-7 weeks to complete.
Right, and all this time you're mentally thinking, I'm running out of time.
Yeah, and then you go on the list. And because I wasn't as sick as other people, there was other priorities before me. The only reason why I got my organ is because it matched my blood type, which is a rare blood type, B negative, and the organ donor was a B negative person. He was a large guy, and there was no one in Australia that could use that size organ.
How lucky were you?
Well, I reckon, I've got a theory, I reckon my old man who's in heaven, he died many years ago, I reckon he went up to God and said, look, I'll do your concrete for you, you look after my son. Because that's what Dad used to do, he was a builder, so...
Cement.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. So he went up to the guys and said, look, you look after my son, I do concrete, you know? That's it. So I reckon that's the reason.
It's a gorgeous way to look at it. But really, you were very lucky because being so rare and also having so many other people waiting for a donation, the fact that you were the only person that could receive this liver was very, very lucky for you, wasn't it?
Exactly, and when they rang me and told me, Sam, this is the Austin Hospital, you know, we've got an organ for you, the first thing I said was give it to the little girl. This little girl at the same time waiting for me, she was 3 years old and she needed an organ, and I said, look, I've had 40 years of life, give it to this little girl. And she goes, no, it's too big, we can't fit it. You know? So, and luckily the friends I made there while I was waiting, they're now recipients of organs, and most of them, you know, they're fine. Some people unfortunately passed away during the op or not many days afterwards, but that's a risk you take, you know.
I'm jumping around a little bit here with this story because different things that you've been telling me come to mind, and just before we started recording, you were mentioning that for some strange reason, certain things that you didn't want to eat or wouldn't eat, you now like. Is that right?
Yeah. Look, I used to love. Before I had the operation, I was a big bread eater. I don't eat as much bread as I used to now for some reason. I love now Brussels sprouts and avocado, but before I didn't eat it. It was weird. So I don't know whether there's some traits there from the donor person.
Or just the fact that it is...
The body working differently.
And craving different nutrients and things like that. But it's really a funny thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing that's happening is my, how do I explain this, your physical system, how it works when it gets rid of body waste and stuff, that's never worked so efficiently ever. I'm spending a lot of money on toilet paper now. So.
Well, that's...
So
that's okay.
Yeah, that's the only way I can describe it. So.
It's okay. Okay, so getting on to this beautiful song.
I was listening to a song one day that was written by Julio Iglesias' son, and a song called Hero, and I really liked the music, and I decided to try and write some lyrics, my own lyrics to it, because I wanted to write a song dedicated to my donor. So I've come up with some fairly large variation in the lyrics, and also which is sort of appropriate to being a recipient of an organ and having a donor, and also changed the arrangement slightly using basically a backing track.
You're going to perform for us.
Thank you. Okay.
We'll take a short break. Be back soon.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. Our special guest this evening is Mr. Sam Biffi. Have you met any of the donor's family?
I did actually. I went to a gig not too long ago in August where I met a family that got up on stage and spoke to about their story, about their son, who actually was on the gift as well, who was noted as the donor. And that was pretty amazing. I managed to go up and thank them, and we both cried then.
So if you haven't thought about it before, please have a really good think about becoming an organ donor. The website is to register online. You can go to www.organdonor.com.au, or you can even probably get some info off our website at Wrokdown, which is www.wrokdown.com. Is there anything you would like to say to the people watching to encourage them to think about becoming organ donors?
Oh, look, it's changed my life. I want to thank obviously the organ donor family, and I wish I could thank the organ donor, but unfortunately I can't. All I know is that he was a gentleman. He was 40 years old and he's now in heaven, but one day I'll get up there and I'll shake his hand. But and also all the people at the Austin Hospital, especially Bob Jones, Paul Gow, and all the nurses and in ambulatory care as well. They were just brilliant. And I hope that people don't waste their body organs. I hope they register as donors because it can make a difference to a lot of people.
To a lot of people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing this really wonderful and very uplifting, because the thing is that obviously there's a negative to one side of it, but the thing is that out of the negative it's created a positive, and for his family as well, because as they know a part of him is going on living inside of you, and I'm sure they'd be very proud of you too. What's the name of this song?
The song's called Hero.
Hero. So